where it goes.
Yes.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to our work session on student achievement. Also, this is the first work session. If you all don't know, that the legislative passed that we live stream our work sessions now, which is, I think, is a great idea because it gives the community to see what happens behind the board meetings. A lot of people think that everything gets done during the board meeting, but it's here in the work session where the magic happens. So today we have Dr. Gatewood. She's going to do a presentation on our student achievement. Are we going to have any words from the superintendent?
Just a real quick open it up, and then we'll tag team. Thank you, Mr. Anderson, members of the board. Like we've done for the last few years, we presented first semester data mid-year, and this is the time that we've done in the past, so we're doing this again, sharing with you all the end of the year data. So you'll have an opportunity to see comparison between fall and then also second semester from that time to this time, but also we'll look at just end of the year data as it relates to graduation rate and so forth at the high school level. So with that, I would like to ask Dr. Gatewood if she will get us started. And as always, I'm sure I will chime in with things to add. So Dr. Gatewood.
Thank you, President Anderson, members of the board. Tonight, like Dr. Young said, we're just going to update you on where we stand related to our assessment. Just like the fall, I plan to cover elementary, then middle school, and then high school data. And hopefully I can click and look at my notes at the same time. If for some reason I can't, let me know.
I'll click for you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Just give me the nod.
You can go ahead. Thank you. And we can go one more. This year was the first year that students in grade 2 were able to participate in iRead more than one time. So last year, second graders across the state all participated in iRead, but this year they took it in March and then they took it again in what we're calling Summer 1 opportunity. Students in grade 3 got to participate in the assessment 3 times. Now when I say that, once they passed, they didn't have to participate again, but they had 3 opportunities to pass this school year. And then summer school was focused solely for elementary students in 2nd and 3rd grade who still needed to pass iRead after those 3 opportunities. Our data for this is specifically for 2nd graders. As you can see in the spring, so what we're calling spring here would be the March test, and then what we're calling summer would be that opportunity 1 for our 2nd graders. Last year they passed at a 30.8%. You see that twice because last year they only got that 1 opportunity. This year in March they tested and passed at 35%. But by the end of the year, they were passing at 44.9%. So 45% of our 2nd graders have already passed iRead and will not have to take that test as 3rd graders.
Did you do a percentage on how many times that it took to pass?
So 2nd graders were only able to take the test twice.
Okay.
So this is from the first time they took it to the 2nd time that they took it.
A couple questions. So in the springtime, and I see here in 2024, we have 30% passing rate.
Mm-hmm.
2 things. Does this account for the percentage of margin of error?
Yes.
So these are the true numbers here?
These are the true numbers.
And
yes.
Can you speak to how it breaks down per school? Like, so, and the reason why I asked that, so that kind of helps us see how do we target schools that are doing, off worse than others, and then lets us know that what are we doing to help those schools out to help with those numbers.
Absolutely. So a couple of things that we do. Number 1, we do 3 practice assessments throughout the course of the year that are built to simulate the test that they're going to take in March. The other thing that we do is once they, after each one of those practices, my team partners with every school based on their data.
So the practice test?
So we do 3 practice tests.
What's the name of that test?
And it's just a Pike written.
Just Pike written? Okay, Pike.
Yes,
okay.
Practice test. that simulates what they're going to experience on the iLearn test.
Okay.
So after each of those practice tests, my team, the curriculum and instruction team, partners with school buildings to say, here's the data, what do we need to do, what's our plan moving forward. And then headed into, after the third practice test, Dr. Young instituted a couple of years ago where the elementary principals write a plan for here's how we're going to address that, any deficits we may have leading into that official state assessment.
Does the practice test have the same rigors as the state test?
So DOE offers item specifications, so we're able to see sample items for all of the tests, iLearn, iRead, etc. And then we base our tests on those item specifications, yes.
So here, when in 2024, we had 30% passing. And so that's 70% not passing.
But this is second graders.
This is what the second grade?
This is just second graders.
All of second grade?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So 70% of all second grade? Okay.
Right.
It's not, okay.
Right.
And so when we looked at the data from 2024, and we put, I guess, I can assume, looking at 2025, because we went up 4.7%, is that from the practices that we put in place that kind of help that?
A variety of things. We had a new textbook adoption last summer headed into, so we had new curriculum maps. We had quite a few things. We introduced UFly, which is a foundational phonics program that is being used across the district. So there were several initiatives that didn't just relate to iRead, but also the state's mandate for the science of reading. So we had to align, our textbooks had to be aligned with that, all of our practices had to be aligned with that, and all of that was mandated last summer, headed into this past school year.
So on the grading scale, I see the we're at 34.7%. Is that on the grading scale, and this will help me understand, and I hope this helps everyone else, is that like a C plus, a B minus, the 4% difference there?
So it's hard for me to correlate it that way because this is the number of students who pass in second grade who don't have to take the test in third grade when it's mandated.
Okay.
Yeah, and so this is iRead. We took the 3 off because they
take it in second grade now.
But it's a third grade proficiency test. And what the state began doing a few years ago is they started allowing students to take it in second grade. But it's a third grade proficiency test. So where we are now is almost 1 out of 2 of our second graders are passing this third grade test, and they'll never take it in third grade.
Okay.
Right, yeah, so there's no expectation from the state that second graders pass this test. But we've got to a point where we're getting close to 1 out of 2 of our second graders pass this third grade test and never have to take it in third grade.
So how do we match up with the other districts?
Well, we don't officially know that until September because summer window hasn't closed. Some school districts wait until the very last minute to take that test. So in September, we'll get all the Marion County, all the Indiana results.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, and once we get those, we'll share those with you guys. I think last year I shared a comparison between us and like all the Marion County schools. So once we get that, we'll share it out.
And the 30.8, that's just the same number taken in the springtime, it just translates over there to the summer, correct?
And 24 because they only got to take it one time.
Okay, one time. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
But this year, the gray indicates that they got to take it twice, and we moved from 35% to 45%.
Okay.
So we had an increase of 10% of our students. Now those 45% will not take it in third grade. The plus to that is number one, when our third graders became third graders historically, they all of a sudden had to take iRead and iLearn, having never taken a state test before. They had 2 tests back to back virtually. But then additionally, this year, because 45% of our students have passed and they don't have to take it, we can focus on those 55% of students and say, what do they need? We are able to look at their the report that comes back from the test to say, they need help in language comprehension, they need help here, and then target our instruction accordingly.
In that 10%, I know this is all second grade. Do you know about how many off the top of your head, how many kids do we have combined in our second grade? Because that'll help me figure out what that 10% represents.
One second. Second grade looks like 759 students were tested. So
so about 75 students.
Yeah.
Is the difference here.
No, so you're saying, oh, I'm
I can't
saying-
do it that quick. I'm gonna be honest.
She said there was 10%, with 10% did better.
Oh.
So this is the
Yes.
second
Yes,
grade here.
the
so
total
700
number of kids, yes.
So about 75
Yes.
students, the
Yeah,
difference here. Okay.
yes, yes.
Oh, now I see, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, okay,
Ms. Dr. Gatewood,
yes.
the ideology of focusing on 55%, 56%, because we have 59% who do not have to take the test. But 44.9 does not have to take the test, so we got 56. How long have you known about the 56%?
The 45, the kids who don't still have to test,
No,
yes.
the ones that are going to have to take it.
That you have to take. So
How long have you known
summer,
about
the
those?
second summer opportunity was June 16th, 17th, somewhere in there.
Question then, what is the plan to make them better, since you've known about it for some time now? You mentioned the fact that you can focus on that particular percentage, so what is the plan to make them better?
So we don't have it listed here, but I've got every school, who went down, who went up, all those kinds of things. My team will partner with the leadership teams of those school buildings, whether it's through MTSS, multi-tier systems of support. So do students have academic or behavior needs that they need help with, those kinds of things. We'll sit down and support them through this data.
So you don't really have a clear-cut plan as of yet?
Well, every school is different. Every school is different. So we have several schools that reach that 70% goal. We have several schools that maybe dropped from last year. We have others who increased from last year. So it depends on the school.
So the schools will help make the remediation plan, but then they'll also have ongoing assessments for those kids in third grade.
Right, those practice
So-
tests will be there
Right.
for those third graders, so we can, after each
Right.
test, target.
What does a mediation plan from the past look like today?
Well, again, every school was slightly different because it depended on where they were. Some schools that fell below that literacy requirement of that 70% have literacy cadre coaches that support only first, second, and third grade. That's a partnership with Marian University that the Indiana Department of Education has. Some schools decide to take their interventionists and make small groups. Some are pushing students into other classrooms depending on their specific need. So it just varies building by building.
And there's really, three main components that the test assesses. So in those small groups, but also in the PLCs of the professional learning communities, when they're taking those assessments, they're looking at, well, is there one or two areas that a specific student out of the three is not proficient in? And then in those small groups, that child will get direct instruction and practice in that specific skill. But to Dr. Gatewood's point, the schools will develop the plans. We have some of the resources, obviously, to help them, but they'll develop the plans for those students actually in the buildings.
You guys go ahead. As those schools develop their plans, and now we're getting year over year, you had this plan, and then next year we see it. Do we start to also formulate, hey, this plan that this school had killed it. That was awesome. This plan this school had, not so much. So if this school over here comes up with that same plan next year,
Yeah.
we're not doing that again.
Prime example to that point, Mr. Hilfer, is Dr. Gatewood referenced UFly. So that was a program, really an instructional model that was implemented and deployed in, was it 2 schools, 2 or 3?
That was before my
Go
time.
before your time, a couple schools. And the results were great. Now, what's interesting is that the state has now come along and said, hey, that model is really a model that we need to be following anyway. But the decision we made, to your point, and I'll that's part of the conversation, was that that's something we're just going to do
Okay.
moving forward because of the success that we had. Yeah, but it's very targeted, specific time. It's fast paced. Students are engaged, and what we've seen is for our students that really works well, and we see the results.
I would also, to speak to your question, share that we have access to all the plans. So if we see something really great, we immediately contact other schools. So we don't wait till the next year.
That's awesome.
We immediately contact and say, hey, we were part of this plan, how can we maybe implement that here? So
And
immediate.
then another thing that we do is, this past year, is that I asked for Mrs. Hardiman to ensure that we're moving the elementary meetings, this elementary assessment, between buildings. So if I'm the host and there's an area that's working, not only do I get to present it, but we get to leave where we're meeting from, and then we get to go down to the classroom and actually observe that practice in person. So that was another thing that we put in place, because all of our schools are doing things, uniquely well.
Dr. Gatewood, my question is about two things. One, I appreciate the fact that these are all second grade. That's incredible. When I see that grade bar, I'm pretty happy about that because they're operating a year in advance. My question is, are exceptional learners and our ESL or ELL learners, are they tested in second grade too? Or do they have to wait till third grade to test as well?
No, they're tested, all second graders tested.
And they're in this number.
Did we?
So,
Yes.
yeah, so what's interesting about this number, it includes special education children, it includes English as second language. So a lot of the children that get what we would call a good cause exemption, because I know Dr. Gay was going to get to what happens if you don't pass IRE 3 in third grade. These numbers include everybody.
We also have some slides that outline demographics too. Yes, ma'am.
So those numbers, if they include exceptional learners, how, the ones that are nonverbals, that are non-motor skill, those numbers included in there too, or they?
So it depends on if their IEP is written
Right.
and they don't take, if they take an alternate assessment, they would not take this.
Yes.
So those are the life skills, they do the alternate.
Right, but some life skills students do take this test.
Yeah,
It
I know.
depends on every
The
child's
level of
IEP,
understanding.
absolutely.
Right.
But any child who takes this assessment is included in this
It's offered to
data.
everybody.
Absolutely, yes.
Dr. Gatewood, how do you internalize the data?
Well, I'm thrilled with 45% of our second graders passing that test and already setting for a state assessment, being able to work the computer because it's all online. So being able to do that, I'm thrilled that they're able to accomplish it, but I'm also thrilled that for the first time, we're able to really focus the next year. We have reports from second grade to be able to say, this is how they performed on this assessment. Now we can take a look at Alicia Gatewood individually, Adrian Gatewood individually, and see where they need, what they need, and we can group accordingly. So this is a good measure for our second graders. Okay, so test to test, so from spring to summer, we had an increase once again of almost just over 10% of our students. We covered that a little bit in all the questions, so we can move right along. So these are our third grade scores. So again, in red you'll see 2024, and in gray you'll see 2025. You'll see that there were 3 opportunities to take the test. Again, if you took it in the spring and you passed it, you don't take it again, right? But this is our overall pass rate. So we started on the first test in March with a 76% pass rate, but we ended with 75% of our students passing that test. Again, we won't know how that measures up to Marion County or the state until later in September. But as soon as we have that information, I'll be happy to provide that to you. Okay.
Did I see it?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, yep. So this is exactly how we performed on spring versus summer 1 versus summer 2. And so the way that students were tested, they were tested in March, and then they were tested before the school year ended, because if they passed that test and that second opportunity, that gray bar, they didn't have to come to summer school. The state mandated that if you didn't pass IRE before you left, then you had to come to summer school, so then that allowed us to be very specific. It gave some of our students an opportunity to not have to come to summer school, and then allowed us to focus directly on the students who did need to come to summer school.
And one of the things I like is just to see that what I take from this, our interventions are working. So the things that we're doing to remediate, to help our children become more proficient and these measures that they're being assessed on, they're working. That's also one of the things that gives me a lot of heartache when we think about the cuts that we're seeing from the federal government. So we think about our title funds. Luckily, and I was going to let you guys know this later on in my notes to you, the 21st century dollars that we have utilized for years for after-school tutoring was held. It's been released, thank the Lord, but those are dollars in opportunities to help our kids get caught up. So this assessment is based on American Standard English. American Standard English. Many of our children do not speak American Standard English until they hit kindergarten. Born and raised in the U.S., but my mom was raised on a farm in North Carolina. My dad was raised in the inner city right here in Indianapolis. Both of them are college educated, but we didn't speak American Standard English at home. So I think as we look at these numbers, that's where we'll see a variance between our kids and then many of the children from our suburban school districts. But what's great about Pike is, even though third grade we may not be quite there, if they stay in our system all the way up through graduation, we've shown that we'll get them there. Our kids just need a little bit more time.
So, which way to go, please?
So also, is it the same thing that we asked before? These kids also, these numbers also include the English as second
Yes, ma'am.
language and exceptional learners are
Yes.
also in this number?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and the exception would be, to Mrs. Wilson's point, if we have children that are more severe and profound
That
in their
take the
individualized
alternate.
education plan that says this test is not
They take the
appropriate.
alternate
Yes, ma'am. That's right.
assessment.
And we've got a demographic
Yeah,
slide
that's-
coming up.
Yeah.
That'll
That was
outline
my
those questions.
question.
Before we go into the demographic one, so, but these kids, they also got the chance to take it in second grade, or this was the first year?
No, so these students did take it in second grade, but they only got to take it the one time. So that's that 30% of students that were in the earlier slide that you saw in 2024. That's,
Oh, okay, because I
yeah.
was getting ready to ask what was the number, okay,
Yes.
sorry.
No, that's
Wasn't
okay.
putting
No,
it all together.
absolutely.
Okay, great.
So they only got to take it the one time last year. This year was the first time our second graders got to take it.
So we
twice.
improved by about 40%
Yes,
by the end of the year?
Yes.
Okay.
yes. Okay. So this is only third graders, and the reason that this is only third graders is because we wouldn't have 24 comparative to 25 data because they didn't take it as first graders, right, if we included the second graders. So this is only third graders, but it is all of our students. So whether they have an IEP, an ILP, whatever that looks like, this is all of our students. And so those are the pass rates by which our Black students and our Hispanic students are passing. You may ask yourself why I don't have some of the other demographics up there. And that's because if you were to go out to DOE's GPS data platform, in order to be considered a student group with DOE, you have to have 10% of the population to even figure. So we don't have, our white students, for instance, are at 7%. Our Island Pacific students are less than 1%. So these are our two student groups.
One question, so how's the, from school to school, how does this help me with targeting what school is doing better with our demographics than others?
We can share that information with you. I don't know if it's in the
It's
slide.
not in the
We've got it.
slides. I've got
I'll share it.
spreadsheets
Yeah,
upon
I'll share it tomorrow.
spreadsheets that.
Yeah, I'll share it tomorrow.
Okay.
We can see the breakdown by school. So these are the overall, but you guys will get that tomorrow.
And I have Mrs. Cohan in the back writing down all your questions for me, so I don't have to
Yeah.
write and.
Yeah, but you are correct. This is the overall, and to that point, Mr. Anderson, when we think about equitable outcomes, and we think about supports like from Dr. Gatewood's office, if one school is doing necessarily well, they're doing pretty well, we're going to put support in another building, right, and help those staff members and administrators, students to get the level of success that we'd like to have. Yeah, but I'll share that tomorrow.
Dr. Gatewood,
Yes, ma'am.
are the good cause exemptions added into that number or not present?
So good cause exemptions don't exist yet for the purposes of this data. So
Okay.
we have to have this data back, and then take a look at, so what Mrs. Barnes is asking about is students there are several paths by which the Indiana Department of Ed has laid out to say if a student doesn't pass the test in 3rd grade, they may qualify for what they call a good cause exemption or GCE. They have to have an IEP that designates that, you know, that there's a concern, or if they have been retained twice before 2nd grade, if they are a newcomer to the country, there's several caveats by which they can qualify. But because we don't get all of our data back until June, specifically on 3rd graders, because you cannot qualify for a good cause exemption until 3rd grade, we don't have that data back until teachers are out, so they'll start having those conferences first thing when everyone comes back, and then that is the case conference committee decision.
And you may have said this, Dr. Gaylor, the importance of the good cause exemption before, it meant that the children didn't necessarily have to go to summer school, or they didn't have to keep retaking the test. But now, a good cause exemption means that the child doesn't have to be retained. So this is the first year where if you're a 3rd grade student, you don't meet good cause exemption. From the state's perspective, you are a 3rd grade student for the next year.
So we're a week out from school starting, and you don't yet know which of these kids are going to go on to 4th grade.
Oh, yes.
We do know.
We
do know which students will absolutely have to be retained.
Yeah.
We have a pretty good idea of who will qualify for good cause exemption, but the special ed law in Indiana says we can't make that decision. The case conference committee has to make that decision. So we have a pretty good idea of our numbers. For sure, our students who will end up retained, because none of those paths existed for them. But we can't override Article 7.
No,
we wouldn't do that.
That was more a comment about the state.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've got
So we can't tell you with precision those
Yeah.
numbers, because we would be overriding
And we
that.
will know that before school starts?
We
or
have a
after?
pretty good idea. We have to have the conferences. Those conferences have to be held. In some cases, principals are calling families, and, well, in every case, principals are calling families and having discussions.
Trying
and
to
those
get
kinds
that
of-
done
yes,
before school.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Not before school.
Not before school.
Sorry, I want to clarify that. No, it's not before school. It'll happen in the first couple of weeks of school.
Before first.
The conference.
That's what I was
Principals are
asking.
calling families now.
Okay, and the conferences will happen after
But
school.
the
That was my
conferences,
question. I wasn't asking
yes.
it
So it
well.
is not
Yeah,
a
thank you.
surprise or a shock, but we have to have that conference, and we
Okay.
have to do that during contract.
Okay.
Contracted days, yes.
Dr. Gatewood, I have
Yes,
one
ma'am.
more question, I'm so
Uh-huh,
sorry.
that's okay.
So, I'm interested in our goal. I know 73 is not our goal, 75 is not our goal, but balancing those good cause exemptions factored in, what is our goal? Or is there a goal?
So the state has a pass rate goal of 95%.
Okay. Is that regardless of your good cause exemption
So good cause exemption
population?
students wouldn't count, they wouldn't count in this data
Got it.
because
Got it.
they are exempted.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense,
Yep.
thanks.
But in that 95% would be special education, ELL,
If they do not
unless they didn't get a
qualify,
good
yeah.
cause. Okay, I got you.
Yeah. So you'll see a reoccurring theme here throughout all of the slides. I tried to break down by these 4 student groups, our general education students compared to our special education students, compared to our English learners, and then our overall scores. You will see that our special education students are not passing at the rates of some of our others. Mrs. Cohan and I luckily developed a lovely working relationship when I worked on what I call the other side of the office. And so she and I, along with her assistant director and our EL coordinator, spent the year really digging into how we offer support for English learners and special education students in Pike Township. We also then made comparisons to other Marion County school corporations to find out exactly what they were doing. We took all of that interview information, so we interviewed every single principal and their leadership team in Pike. And then Mrs. Cohan reached out to other directors of special education or exceptional learners, and Ms. Swinton reached out to other English learner coordinators. We took all of that information, determined, where we were seeing things that were working, et cetera. We did a formalized proposal to Dr. Young this spring, and you'll see some of that in place in school this fall. 2 of the biggest pieces are, number 1, too many of our special education students were being pulled out during core instruction. So we will be moving to a push-in model where teachers and instructional aides can push in during core instruction, but we are not pulling students out during that time. They've got to be exposed to grade level instruction. So I say that now when we're talking about iRead, but I mean that same thing when we talk about iLearn. I mean that same thing when we talk about SAT from kindergarten to 12th grade, same thing. The other thing that we saw a need for is co-teaching, and Ms. Cohan has lots of training on co-teaching. She's offering training to our teachers on co-teaching, and so a resource teacher or an English learner teacher will partner with a teacher who's in the classroom. One isn't just sitting or help, passing out papers. They are teaching together, they are prepping together, they are planning together. There are several different models, so I might be leading, and Ms. Cohan, I may be leading a whole group lesson while Mrs. Cohan then is meeting with small groups, or she's walking around and intervening right on behalf of students if they've got whiteboards out, those kinds of things, but it's a true partnership between the two teachers. So those are the two biggest. There are several others, but those are the two biggest that we believe will impact student achievement. Yes.
Obviously the 2025 numbers still include the cohort that could get the good cause exemption because we don't know yet. Our 2024 numbers, do those include the kids that ultimately got the good cause exemption, or are they pulled out of those numbers for the percentages?
So these are the numbers of students who passed. So if they passed a good cause exemption.
Okay. But the others still count in that 100%, because if they were pulled out, the percentage would change because they wouldn't count in the 100%. You see what I'm saying? If we had 100 kids, and 78 passed, and of the other, now I can't do that math in my head. 22 kids, 5 of them had a good cause. But if you pull them out, now the 100 number drops.
If they're including this number, it's 73%. But if we pull those kids out, this percent would jump up.
Okay, so they are included.
Well, no, but I'm saying I'm verifying that I'm understanding your question.
Yes.
I think what you said, if I'm understanding, if those students are in this number, got it, it's 73. But if they're pulled out, that number would be a whole lot higher.
I would assume, or else we're not comparing apples to apples.
Yeah. So this is 73%, for example, the overall, right? 73%. Is 73% of what? 73% of every single child?
It is every single child, because a good cause exemption just exempts a child from retention. It does not exempt them from retaking the
Okay,
test.
I just want to make sure we had apples to apples.
Yes.
It's honestly, other than special ed, which has pretty good growth, the other is a little bit negligible. If that was also pulled out, then that even skews it more. So I just want to make sure we were looking at.
Yes, so a good cause exemption only exempts students from being retained in the 3rd grade. It does not exempt them from retaking that test.
So this is everybody that took the test. Okay, that's what
And they will, even if they get a good cause exemption but didn't pass, they will still have to take that test as 4th graders.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Dr. Gatewood, tell us why you're excited about 3% in general education.
3.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm looking at, 78 to 81%.
Oh, why I'm excited about that? Well, I'm always
6%.
excited for growth.
Yeah.
I'm always excited for growth. That's less students, so every time we grow, that's less students. So I'm a huge believer in Tier 1 instruction, and when our Tier 1 instruction for our whole class is solid, then our Tier 2, our interventions, and our Tier 3, our targeted interventions, can be focused on the students who absolutely need it, right? So anytime we have students growing and passing the test, then we have less students that we need to focus on for Tier 2 or Tier 3 intervention. So we are really drilling down to the students who need the most support to get what they need.
The ELL student, what are you doing in that area?
So the two things that I mentioned, the co-teaching and the not pulling out during core instruction is for our special education and our English learner students. We have some other things in the works. So for instance, when we start getting into some of our other data, one of the things that we've noticed is that our English learner population textbook adoption hasn't happened for them, for maybe our newcomer students at the rates in which they should. The other things that we are doing for all of our students is we've rewritten all of our curriculum maps and our frameworks. So we pulled groups of teachers together that that volunteered this summer to come in and work with my team, and we revamped English and math in elementary school, both the framework and the curriculum maps. And then we did, for middle school, we did English, math, science, and social studies. So we had teachers come in. Another thing that we're doing is as we roll out curriculum written by teachers, we ask for feedback. That was new last year in second semester. So every time you finish a unit, if you are in that unit and you recognize that this standard isn't aligned with where it should be taught, then you give us that feedback, and we implemented all of that this summer. So we made sure that those standards were aligned. We did audits in the fall this year. So we took a look at the standards, at where they should be assessed according to Indiana Department of Ed, and where the standards showed up in our curriculum. And there were some gaps that we found. And so we had to revamp those resources as well.
The co-teaching piece,
Yes,
it'll be a new piece.
it will be.
You haven't done it yet, I understand that.
In some areas, we've been.
It's not
co-teaching at
a
the
new
high
model.
school
Could
for-
you tell me what it looks like?
I'm gonna call on Mrs. Callahan, because there are several models which I alluded to, but she can speak with authority.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't-
there's several models. She talked about a couple. We're implementing it fully at the middle school level.
Just go ahead, could you give me one that you're proud of?
The one that I'm proudest of, I would say the one that I think works best as a special educator myself is one that she was talking about, where you've got someone in the front teaching the group and you have someone in the back either with a small group or teaching the students that need a little bit extra help or a little more support right there along the side.
The results are,
I'm sorry, the results?
Yeah, what do you think
Well,
the
we haven't
results
done it yet at this level. I mean, there are some places that have done it, and they've been highly successful. It really depends on the match between the general ed teacher and the special ed teacher. If the matches there and they're good, and they're willing to work together, that's when you see the most growth. You see really great things happen. The high school has been doing it for a long time. Mr. Enman could talk to that, because he started it when he was there. It's been highly successful in high school. I mean, our graduation rate is really, it's really dependent on, we have a very high percentage of special ed students who graduate, and it's really dependent on that model, in my opinion.
And one thing I would add is, so if you imagine Larry Young, I'm an exceptional learner. I get instruction from my gen ed teacher. I also get support from my exceptional learners teacher, because my IEP says I get additional support. But what happens is this person plans over here. This person plans over here. This person pulls me out of class and gives me instruction in a small group, right? This person has their instruction, their lesson for me, same student. With co-teaching, we get rid of this. The idea is these teachers are planning together. They're instructing together. They're assessing together. So that's the co-teaching model. It's usually a partnership between gen ed and special education. And real quick, if I didn't answer your question, I'll come back to it, but I did before I forget. I want to say another thing I'm excited about. We did get the AI grant. And I know one time this year I'm going to say Magic School Bus, but I'm not going to say it today. Magic School. And that is a tool we're utilizing, Dr. Moore, that will allow teachers to have a resource, but it's also really one of our first tools that our students can use as well. So when you think about ChatGPT, Gemini, some of the other ones, there are age requirements that prohibit our children from using the tools. Our teachers can use them, but our students can't. But now, with the grant that we got approved, that you guys approved, we now have a tool with our ELL students that we've never had before. AI is bridging the gap in reaching our ELL and special education students in a way I haven't seen in my career for almost 30 years. It's profound. The challenge is, how do we equip and train? How do we give examples? How do we provide our teachers with enough time to learn about those tools and become proficient? It's out there. Do I think we're utilizing it at even a fraction of what we can? The answer is no. And that's the challenge. But we're working on it. So AI is one that I'm really excited about to your previous question.
Thank you for the explanation of co-teaching. I think now education has to be somewhat proactive, more proactive these days. I don't know if anybody else agrees with that, but I do, based on the things that are coming down the pipe. So co-teaching, if it is not as effective as you would like it to be, are you understanding? What's your second plan? What is plan B?
So we'll
Because
have,
we have, these are students that we're working with and we're trying to increase these numbers.
Absolutely. Well, I would say plan A was developed based on the data we collected. So plan B will be developed based on the data we collected. So, Ms. Cohen can tell you, I had a hypothesis, just haven't been around for a while, when we saw our special education numbers become stagnant. Because I'm telling you, this stuff is secular. And I'm going back years and years and years, and what I was wondering was when our students are getting their core instruction on many of these skills that are being assessed, state assessments, I-READ 3, or whether it's I-Learn, I thought that they were being pulled out to work with their exceptional learners teacher. So you're missing the core content that you're going to be assessed on because you're pulled out during that core instruction and you're working on your IEP goals, where your IEP goals may not cover these things. So we had a hypothesis, then we went out and we collected data. Well, guess what the data showed? The hypothesis was correct. So the plan is to combat what we saw that was causing the problem. So to your point, Dr. Moore, if we see that we're still not getting the results, we're going to go collect data and try to figure out what the root cause is and develop a plan based on that.
So it was the data that got us where we are now.
It's the data that said, hey,
And so it'll be
this
the
month.
data that'll push us in another direction.
Yes, sir.
Am I right?
Should we be ineffective?
Should we
Yes,
go-
sir.
Thank you, Dr. Webb.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But I would say, again, one of the things that I'm liking, this is the third straight year. If you look at other school districts, you'll see whether it's I-READ 3 or I-Learn, that you don't see a steady increase. You'll see kind of something like that. My fear when you see that is there was just something in the water that year. Right? You just had a good group of kids come in, but then you see a drop, right? Strong group come in and drop. What this suggests to me is that we're building a good core foundation and we won't see a bunch of this, right? You may be stagnant, slight drops, but we won't have big major drops that we saw a few years back.
So I was gonna say, the research backs this as well. And Dr. Gatewood also mentioned about the co-teaching. You gotta have the right mix. And as we're doing staff training, staff development, having that mindset shift is going to be very key, very necessary, but also making sure that, I'm trying to think of the other question I had about it, but giving them time, not just to gel as teachers, but I think you mentioned about there's planning time. They have to have that, the lesson being developed, who's gonna teach what, when, having those conversations before they're in front of kids is going to be huge.
Yeah.
So that any of the things that have to be worked out can be worked out. There's gonna be flies in every ointment. However, the more we give time for, and we help them understand, this is the goal, this is the plan, we're not going back to where we're not co-teaching. And whether you are, whatever you're teaching, you're gonna need to understand differentiation. You're gonna need to understand goal, tracking IEP goals and progress monitoring in a different way. You can't avoid it anymore and say, oh, that's the special ed or this exceptional learner. No, everybody is now a player on that child's, a real player on that child's team. The whole team has an invested interest in seeing that child be a number increase. Not just the exceptional learners teacher or the instructional assistant, but the whole, all the teachers that that child has, all the educators. It has to be there, everybody has to have the same goal, that we are working as a team to increase, not just increase scores, but to increase student learning, increase student knowledge, increase outcomes. That has to be our focus, not this is what I do. No, it's not about that at this point. It's about kids and growth.
For years of exceptional learners or students with disabilities, we've had an us versus them mentality. Those are their kids, these are my kids, those sort of things. So this breaks that down in ways that can accomplish the united, these are all of our kids, a little bit faster. The other thing I want to mention is that we recently had our Elevate Ed Professional Development Week, and Mrs. Cohan started professional development training opportunities ahead of time, so the teachers are prepared for this opportunity.
Yeah, and just real quick, I just want to reiterate, this model will fail if we don't do what Ms. Kelly shared. It's not the model. It's the educators. If we don't prepare them to be successful and train them, the model will fail. There's no model that will keep us going the direction that we want to go. The teachers have to be, we could put them in a situation where they can be successful, but we have to equip them. So that's incumbent on us. That's our challenge, right?
Mr. Cohan, could you tell us if that is the challenge and you're in a position to shift the paradigm now, what will be your first steps to shift that paradigm if you have not already shifted?
As in start doing co-teaching?
Yes.
We brought
To get
in-
where Miss Kelly's also talking about, to where it's just not Miss Kelly's kid anymore.
Oh.
It's all of our.
I had a great, I'll just give you an example. I had a great conversation with Ryan Middle, and it was the general ed teachers that were saying that to me. And when you see that happen, you know that the shift has started now. When the general ed teachers are raising their hand and saying, listen, who am I responsible for? And now I'm responsible for all of the students. That was pretty exciting to see. I think they're starting to really get that. And it was both groups are really kind of coming together. You have to have everybody together at the same place at the same point in time, hearing the same information. That's really where it starts. And then come back together frequently over the school year.
Thank you.
I would go back to your comment earlier about data, the decision being driven by data, Plan B will be driven by data. I'm a firm believer in transparency, and you have to be transparent and realistic about where you are if you want to move forward. So I was going to talk about this a little bit later, but one of the things that we did this year was we made sure, number one, we walked buildings as a team. So my team walked together, we walked every single ELA class, for instance, in every middle school in the same week to see, is everybody on the same place in the curriculum map, what's happening? And then I met with the principal and Mr. Edmond directly after. So what gets measured gets done, right? So we're in observing, and then that helps us understand what professional development needs done. Where do we need to tweak the maps? What do we need to be doing? What do the teachers need support-wise to ensure that our students are getting exactly what they need? The other thing that we did is Ms. Cohan and I partnered, so every time we met with any principal on data, we were there, my team was there, their leadership team was there, and we broke down the demographics. You know, only 2 special education kids in 6th grade passed this test. How are we planning for them before the next assessment? So we went that granular with data every single time, and we met them on their campus. We, met at a time that was convenient to them. We did everything we could to make sure that everybody was at the table who can impact that information. Yes.
My concern, kind of back to what Ms. Kelly was talking about, probably a question to Ms. Cohan. So have we thought through, since this is a new paradigm for the district, what if we get into the personality conflicts and those things with the teachers, and how that could be a very train wreck for our children? Have we thought that through?
Well, we have a great model at the high school, and that's happened in the high school. We've had to go in and have a conversation. Okay, where are we gonna move? And a lot of times it needs to be within special ed, because content area teachers are licensed in that area. It's very difficult to move those folks are at. So usually we look at the special educators and see what would be a benefit for that particular person. There's still going to be some need for direct instruction and some need for smaller groups, and there might be someone that needs to do that. Maybe they would be a co-teacher, maybe they would still do those small groups, but you don't really know those things until you start to do them. And I kind of believe in letting everybody try to do the thing and then figuring out from there what is best for each person.
I just want to make sure that we are prepared for those kind of things. But if teachers and their assistants now, what are they? Sometimes the AIs are having problems with the teachers, and so that's a problem there. I can imagine co-teaching, that can be a train wreck if it's not thought through and addressed right away.
Okay, so we were talking about the data. So how are we policing lesson plans to see? I know they can't teach directly operational testing, but in order for our kids to be successful, how are we policing the lesson plans of our teachers to make sure they are teaching our kids what they need to know?
Right.
And firsthand, I had my granddaughter, was a second grader. She went from Oaks Academy because she wanted to go to Fishback. I was very disappointed in the teacher because when she was at Oaks Academy, she brought home homework every day because I helped her with it. She had learned, words that she had to do. So when I asked the teacher, why didn't I send homework with my daughter, she says, well, we don't do that anymore. They don't need to have, and I thought, she's a second grader. She has to learn her sight words. She has to do math. And you say that she doesn't need it, or she was sent home a sheet that says, find a book, read it, and tell me about it. And that was her homework.
Yeah, so one of the things I actually instituted years ago, we had a model and expectation for lesson plan. It kind of went by the wayside. When I took over superintendent, I reinstituted the expectation that you have a lesson plan and a model with the components of it that has to be submitted to the principal, where obviously we can gain access to that. What you're sharing, I actually experienced that. I was at an elementary school for a completely different reason, working with the parents had done what I would ask. Question, concern, go to the teacher, go to the administrator. They had done that, so I was more than happy and the director, so I was more than happy to be at the table. And I won't mention the school, but that came up, and the parent was like, hey, I want to help my child, and I've asked for extra work, and I just don't have homework. So what I shared with that principal, parent was right there, and then that's the reason why also, as we look at our iRead3 and iLearn plans, that there has to be a component for our parents. In other words, a way that our parents can help our students. There are some children that, and this is my expectation, there are some children that they give all they can give, they're exhausted, and it may not be to the best interest of the child to make them then go home and do 2 or 3 hours more homework. You have other parents and other children that have a great, that's not the case, and they have parents that are there that are able to help them and want to help them. My expectation is if that's the case, that's what they get. That's what they get. And what you're saying, I'm saying is true because I have seen that, but that is the expectation, that should not be happening. If parents are there, able to help and want to help, we should be giving them the resources to do that.
Because I just feel like you can't teach them everything you want them to do because of all those things that they're distracted from in school. So when they come home and they have a routine, okay, you still have at least an hour of some work that you need to do so that it sticks with them. And then that way they're improving. But when you send a kid home and says, find a book, read it, and write up on it, and they can't spell, it was just baffling to me. And one of the comments was made, well, she was at Oaks Academy, it's a private school. Well, now she's in a school, they moved to another state. She went to a different school, it's just a public school, it's not a private school. The exact same curriculum that Oaks Academy has. She's in the second grade, the exact same curriculum, and it threw me over because I went down there, stayed a week, and I saw the curriculum, and I thought, wow, so it doesn't have to be a private school offering this curriculum. So do we intermingle with other schools to see what they're doing that's working, I mean, second graders are second graders, whether they're in Oaks County or whatever school, North Central, whatever. So are we looking at other schools and mirroring or trying to utilize some of what they do that's working best for them? I mean, I know we do within Pike, I get that, but do we branch out so that we can make sure that our kids are getting the best competitive education?
If what the other school districts are doing is working, yes, we absolutely. It's like, we meet monthly with the Marion County superintendents, and that's one of the standing questions. And I know also from the chief academic officers, or also the assistant superintendent levels, but also the Department of Education. We absolutely, yeah.
And I always say this, I get the numbers. I get we're at 30%, we should be at 90%. I get the numbers, but I get the education part. I get to stick it to my kids' mind so that they can be, as they grow, they can be competitive when they graduate from Pike High School and not get pushed through because we need these numbers. And that's the only reason I look at numbers, but they really don't resonate with me because I really want to know what did they learn and who's policing our teachers to make sure that they are actually incorporating what their lesson plan says. I could write a lesson plan.
So I would also tell you,
yeah,
this
that's
is
where the
not the
walk
first
is
district
done.
I've worked in, so
Yeah.
I've made a few friends in a few other places where I have existed. And we all, I mean, it's just common, right? It's just common for educators to say, well, we do this, and what are you doing here? Or, you know, we're looking at this assessment. I understand that you use it. What results have you seen? Those sorts of things. So those things definitely happen, not only from friends from former districts, but former friends from DOE who've moved on to districts and those kinds of things. The chief academic officers in Marion County meet roughly once a month and have conversation, especially as legislation has come down from the state or the federal. You know, how are you all addressing this concern? So absolutely, we have those conversations.
And that's good to know. I mean, I afforded that opportunity. Ms. Cohen allowed a bunch of us to go to Avon to see what their curriculum about with special needs. We learned a lot, and that's because they allowed us to take that professional day and all of us went there. So yeah, and I do know we do that. I was just questioning because, I mean, numbers are numbers, but absolutely, somebody's got to make sure that teachers are doing it.
Dr. Gatewood, one last question.
Yes.
Maybe. I'm curious to where the high ability learners fall on that chart.
So they would fall in the general education, this first column. And unless they have an IEP, because some of our high ability students have an IEP or an ILP, so they would fall in, well, they could ultimately fall in any of the categories, but that last category, that last red column, that darker red, is all of our students. So we've only talked about IREAD, we've got quite a few more assessments to talk about. Let's move on to NWEA. So NWEA was taken in K to 5th grade. And you'll see this chart in your slide deck. This is comparative from from the fall to the spring. So how students tested when they came in this fall, and then how they were tested on, how they were assessing on NWEA in the spring.
This is the same, this is like the pre-test.
So this test is.
It's a different assessment.
Yeah, this test.
Doesn't necessarily correlate to IREAD.
Well, it does not correlate to IREAD. Was supposed to correlate to iLearn, but what I would tell you is, so this test is taken 3 times a year. It's taken fall, winter, and spring, but that would have been way too many bars to put all 3 tests on there, so I figured you wanted to know how they did when they came in and before they left. What I would tell you about NWEA is that we're moving away from this. Number one, because the state is mandating checkpoints, so a through course assessment for grades 3 to 8. But number 2, because NWEA, though it promised many years ago to be aligned to iLearn, and they were sold to multiple districts. My district in East Allen years ago still used them, that sort of thing. What has happened though is they are not a state-specific test. So it's a broad stroke. It's just not as granular as our Indiana standards are. And so when we moved to checkpoints, we did checkpoints in middle school this year. Next year, all schools across the state, 3 to 8, will use those checkpoints. So it'll replace this. They'll do a fall, winter, and spring.
And this test does not assess for mastery.
It does not.
So IREAD, it's a mastery test. So in other words, there is a bar And if you get that bar, you get above it, you're proficient. NWEA, virtually, not realistically, but virtually, the amount of knowledge you can show proficiency for our kids is almost unlimited. It's not, it's limited. But a second grader, for example, Mr. Anderson, the test will allow him, if he's a second grader, this may be fourth grade content, it will ask him questions up here in the fourth grade area if he keeps getting questions right.
So it's adaptive.
It is
It's
an
adaptive,
adaptive test,
right?
yes.
For me, it'll get down to first grade if I keep getting answers wrong. It just kind of shows where you are, but it's not a proficiency test.
So what's that number then? 50, is that 50%? It can't be 50% that we're proficient, we just said it's not, it doesn't sound like it's a pass.
Well, so they have cut scores for every grade level. So in kindergarten, you should test at this cut score. In first grade, you should test at this cut score. So each grade level has a cut score. This is how many of our students surpass that cut score.
Cut score.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Kelly?
Okay, I'm looking, my eyes immediately went to 4th and 5th grade.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
And this is the second year in a row that we've seen data with 4th and 5th grade that has gone in that direction. I'm curious if we know, if we've pinpointed why, and then what we're doing to, because that's pretty significant
Absolutely.
drop.
So if you think back to when COVID happened, that was in 2020. So those are our 4th and 5th grade students now who were not in school, who were learning virtually, who were doing all those kinds of
They were at
things.
one place in fall, and then spring.
Right. But if you look at how our kindergartners are doing, for instance, versus how our 4th and 5th graders are performing, they're performing lower, so there are some gaps there. I would also tell you that you've heard this 100 times, so I'm not telling you anything new, but students are learning to read, right? And then they're reading to learn. And so the text structure of the questions and all those kinds of things, they start having to compare multiple paragraphs and text to each other. How that looks is a little different. And so if you look at how our kindergartners and our early primary students are performing, they're performing much better than our 4th and 5th graders.
So when they take it in the fall, it's a different assessment than what they take in the spring?
It is, well, every test is a slightly different assessment. It doesn't
But I
have to
mean,
be
like
the
you're
exact
saying,
same.
the paragraphs and all of that, is that the same in the fall and the spring?
So the test is adaptive. So if I did really poorly in the fall, I just happened to not sleep that day and whatever, but in the spring, I'm on it and I'm answering those questions better, it could be a slightly different test.
But to your point, we shouldn't see a regression.
Right.
Shouldn't see a regression, right? So to your point,
Because those are the only two
The
grades.
questions do get harder. It is an
Had that.
adaptive test. Yes.
yeah. So, but to your point though, it's adaptive. But in fourth grade, if I was here, right, we would still expect to see that level of yes, increase.
At least stay the
Yes.
same. If
At least stay, yes.
If I didn't grow, I'm not decreasing.
Yeah.
I guess that's.
And then I think the other thing too. Now, this is not the level of. This is not the what's the word I'm looking for? The number of kids that are at the expected growth level, is it? So, for example, children who take the test in the fall in fourth grade, here's the benchmark. Are we saying, and I'm not sure, that half of our kids are at that mark?
So this number is telling you the number of kids who are above proficiency.
Above
not
proficiency.
approaching
Yeah.
and not below.
There we
These
go.
are the kids that are,
Yeah.
who have surpassed the grade level
There you go.
expectation.
That's right. So, then that's what I'm saying here. These students did grow. So it's not saying they didn't grow. The problem is, when you look nationally, kids in fourth grade, they should be here in the fall, and they should be here in the spring.
Right.
Right.
In the
Right.
fall, one half of Pike's kids were above this mark. In the spring, less than 1/2. So in other words, what this data is showing is that our kids, they grew, but they didn't grow at the rate as other children across the nation. And that still raises the question of what's at the root cause of that. What's at the root cause? And so, you know, I can't give you an answer to that right now at this moment. I would say that's one assessment. And I think as we get to the I Learn,
I know it's taken twice a year. You take it, they call it beginning of the year,
Yeah.
and end of the year, you take it. And there's some, I don't know, do they do the?
They take it 3 times a year. They take it in the fall, in the winter, and the
I
spring.
know a former district, I know, used to do it like every 2 weeks. They do progress monitoring, they called it, where they would they would practice, I guess. And then as they kept practicing, then when they would take compare, like they'd have opportunities to be exposed to those same questions, same types of things, more of benchmarks along the way. Are we still doing benchmarks in there as well?
There is progress monitoring happening here.
One
For our
thing,
students who fall below proficiency, and then our students who are above proficiency would receive some enrichment.
now, one thing I believe is happening. These grades here, where you see these large gains, are not gains where students have to pass a state assessment. Therefore, the focus for student attainment and proficiency is solely based on the skills that this test assesses. Now, when we get over here, this is called the high stakes grades. We know that one, if you don't pass IRE 3, now you don't get to move on. We also know, and our teachers know, that I Learn scores are high stakes, and they'll be, you know, on the news and everything else. So, the content that's focused on in these grades is what you're going to see in IRE 3 and I Learn.
So NWEA does not match up with those
No.
same
It's not as
standards?
granular, no.
No.
When NWEA was first purchased throughout the state of Indiana, I was in another district, and they sold us a story that they were gonna be so aligned to the I Learn test. At that time, it was, I-STEP, thank you. And the reality is it just hasn't. And so that's why Department of Ed decided to do away with, well, not do away with, but the formative assessment grant that covers these levels
So
of
the
assessment
elementary have
became
this
checkpoints.
Same checkpoints that middle school
Beginning
has?
next year, grades 3 to 8 will all do checkpoints. So they will not do NWEA in grades 3 through 5 next year, no. And those are based on Indiana state standards. This is a broad, nationally normed test.
Yeah. And again, I, as an educator, I understand. If I was given IRE 3 and I Learn, that's what I would be focused on, make sure my kids can show proficiency in those areas. That's what I believe.
So I hear what you're saying, but when I look at the state's breakdown of our elementary schools because that should match ELA in I Learn, right?
No, this is NWEA.
No.
It was English and language arts.
It's still-
This is a different
It is,
assessment.
No, I know, but it's English and language arts, so it's, I mean.
That's what
No.
she's saying, they're assessing different things.
It's still the same.
It's a broad normative
Yes.
test that
Yeah.
covers everybody in the nation.
But-
Yeah.
And I Learn is just on Indiana state
yeah,
standards.
I got you. My point is, so that 40% that hit proficiency, and looking at our elementary schools, we've only got one that beat that. If I Learn's where we're focusing, we've only got one in 4th grade and 5th grade that beat that percentage for I Learn, and nobody else is even close.
So this
So
is,
if we're saying that these scores are bad because they're focusing on I Learn, I don't know, because the I Learn percentages are pretty bad too. You see what I'm saying?
so this is the students who surpass the proficiency expectation on NWEA.
Right.
I would not compare NWEA to I Learn. That's what I started by
Okay,
saying.
okay.
Yeah.
I do not believe that there is a
Okay.
correlation, which is why we're going away from that.
Okay.
Because this test is a very broad tests that I can take in South Dakota, I can take in West Virginia.
I'm just saying it looks like our kids did better on that test than they did ILR.
Yeah.
Is what my.
Well, and this is a much more broad assessment. So they're asking, I would push to say lower level questions.
Oh,
They're-
so you're saying that test is easier?
Yes.
When I hear broader, I think you gotta know more.
Right.
I
No,
think
this
it's harder.
is
So
a
that-
broader, it's got.
Okay, that was my.
You were trying to say that, he pushed that out of you.
I'm sorry,
Okay,
I'm
thank you.
sorry, I wasn't trying to be difficult, I'm
And I'm
sorry.
definitely not saying, yeah.
That helps, but I'm looking at numbers.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, next time, just tell me.
I'm not trying to say that's the, I'm just saying that could be.
Okay.
You said that was more of adaptive, so.
This is an adaptive
Right,
test.
everybody's lower.
Well, and it depends on how Alicia Gaywood woke up that day, right? I mean, I got 2 teenage girls in my house,
I
and
know that's right.
every day is different.
Every day is different.
The progress monitoring piece.
Yes.
4th and 5th graders. Dr. Young made a statement, he couldn't pinpoint where the issue was in that particular drop.
You mean right here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us how process monitoring can help that particular area if you all are committed to process monitoring.
Yeah. That's
And not
right.
just use it as an educational cliche. How committed are you as an academic to process monitoring?
So there were progress monitoring opportunities in this assessment. Moving forward, we're not using this assessment for our 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. What we will be doing this fall is a checkpoint. And so they are aligned to Indiana State standards. So let's just say, because my math skills are, I'm an English teacher at heart, okay? So we're gonna say 12, okay? Because I can divide 12 easily by 3. So at the beginning of the year, 4 standards will be tested on checkpoint 1. Then they will have an opportunity this fall for checkpoint 1.2. So they will test on these 4 standards in math and ELA. And then the next opportunity, let's say 4 weeks later, they will take another assessment on those same standards. So I'll get the results back from test 1 and be able to progress monitor or intervene on how students performed on that test. 4 weeks later, they will take a test over those same standards again. And I will determine, do they need additional support? Do we need to go to a tier 2 or tier 3 intervention? Or are these students ready to move on to those next standards? We will do that 5 times leading up to the iLearn test this fall.
Yes, ma'am.
And those will all be written on Indiana State standards. The other thing that happened with iLearn this past year was, even though Indiana adopted in 2023 Indiana State standards, the 2020 standards were still a part of the iLearn test up through this spring. Those have all dropped off now, so we have a very clean test. We have a very clean curriculum map that matches the exact standards. We aren't dabbling in 2 different worlds as we have been.
Thank you.
Okay, so that was ELA, and this is math. Our math scores look a little different than our ELA scores, and our students were hitting that ceiling and surpassing from the year before. We tightened up our math instruction this past year and got back into some foundational basics. Okay, iLearn. Now let's talk about this, and these rates are just grades 3 to 5, because we're only talking elementary. So if you look at the Marion County scores, they'll look a little different because Marion County releases grades 3 to 8 all combined. I wanted you to have a picture of elementary. And so this is how our students were performing on the English Language Arts test, how all of our students performed, and then a breakdown of our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students. Now you'll know, go ahead, I'm sorry.
With this here, and this is where the breakdown is very, very important, that we see what the individual schools are doing. Because that helps us as a board have a better understanding. Okay, we know that Fishback, they're doing pretty good. They're coming in about 68%, but then we have some schools coming in at 12%. So then that helps us keep track of, when we go later on through the year, what did this school come in at? According to IDOE, so I don't know what we have here, but just according to IDOE. But later on down the year, that helps us keep track of, okay, last time we talked about this, how's this school doing?
Yeah.
What did we do to target the process that will help our students come up? And so then that way, so that's why I harp so much on the individual schools and letting us see that part, because that gives us a chance to ask questions that will help us understand that better.
Absolutely.
I can get that sent to you. I keep it. It travels everywhere with me in the car, to and from work, to wherever I am. I mean, we not only have their percentages, but the sheet that I carry breaks down scores from 23 through 25, their 1 year increase or decrease, their 2 year increase or decrease. So we're always looking at the numbers to say, okay, this is driving this. Oh, I see a slight decrease here. What is the cause of that? We have conversations directly with the leadership. My team attends the leadership teams, the leadership meetings of the individual buildings, et cetera, so that we are constantly looking at these numbers and assessing.
And that part helps us when we talk about, so we can see the demographics.
Okay.
You know, what if we have what type of students that we have, if they have IEPs, you know, what does that look like? How does co-teaching help with this? So that will give us a better understanding when we have it in that format.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, I think I don't know about what percent, but each year our percent of total students is increasing when it comes to the number of children that have IEPs. And I think a big part of that is just because we have a reputation of doing a good job serving them. And then also, we have a lot of school districts, and we don't say districts because they're kind of like us, but a lot of schools and other places that just won't provide the service.
Charter schools.
Yeah.
I have a general question about iLearn. It may not be one you want to answer with YouTube going, but I'm gonna ask anyway. When I look at the state proficiency, 3rd grade, 40% in the whole state. How? There's gotta be something wrong. Is the test bad? Are we really that bad as a state? Like 40% of the kids in the state, like, so when I see our numbers, they're not what I would consider acceptable, even though I see a little bit of growth. There's no way I can look at them and say they're acceptable. But it's the entire state study. So like 60% of our kids aren't. There's gotta be something else that's going on. There's gotta be.
Well, I think the test is definitely a component of that. But I also I always go, when I look at our graduates, our kids that walk across the stage, have success, I would put it on par with any school district across the nation. Our graduates are phenomenal. So we get our kids there, but we're a K-12 system.
Right.
When you look at the children that walk in our past assessments, again, going back to the analogy I used before, that are based on, or you have to have a mastery and strong background in American Standard English because they're still learning. But if they stay in our system, we get them there, right? Our children meet all those requirements for graduation without waivers. They get into college, they do all of those things. There's a level of bias in those assessments. That's just it.
I guess, well, at my point, there was apparently 60% of the kids in our entire state are in that same boat. Like, I'm not an educator, I'm an IT geek. That number, that math don't math. 60%, like, there's gotta be something else that's outlying. So I guess I'm saying that also when I look at our numbers, 3rd grade numbers, not acceptable. But I also get it. Like, if 40% is the ceiling, like that's where the state is, something's wrong somewhere. Is I guess all I needed to say. Yeah, that's just crazy.
As an Indiana educator, you're right.
Okay, thank you.
In fact, in one of my workshops that I was at in New Orleans last year, they were grilling Indiana about our education and how we were behind. They were drilling it. I just kind of sit.
Wow. And one of the things that I
drilling Indiana.
It's all over.
Yeah, but they were drilling Indiana.
And one of the things that I used to to support.
You just got to talk
That's
over
okay.
Dr. Young.
No, I will be.
I'm sorry, y'all.
No, I will be respectful. But one of the things I use to support my argument is,
Yeah.
if we give kids 2 more years in our system earlier, so if we put them in our 3s and 4s program,
I agree.
their pass rates are, gosh, more 10% higher than the other kids that don't go through the program.
Which that's what
They
our
just
state has
need-
chosen not to fund.
We don't get funding
That's
for
what I'm
that. We just,
saying.
our kids just need more time, and that's my proof of it.
Yeah, okay.
Question for the 4th grade there, and they're dead even at 25 from spring, from 24 to 25. What does that tell me? You know, when I look at the individual schools and I see their numbers, but what does that number, what can I get from that right there? Can you explain that?
So in 4th grade, I'm glad you asked, I have my notes right here on 4th grade, because we noticed a decline as well. The 4th grade test is just a different test than the 3rd grade test. It's that reading to learn versus learning to read. So our writing prompts that students are expected to write to in 4th grade are longer. In 4th grade, they have to start comparing 2 texts. So that you no longer read one text and then answer questions based on that text. You have to compare 2 texts and determine things like that. There's also just, the texts themselves are more difficult. So they're informational versus a fictional passage. So they're longer, they're harder, we have to compare to. Our writing prompt is longer, and you're expected to cite sources and cite your information in 4th grade that you're not expected to do in 3rd grade. And so there's just a drop.
And to that point, what Dr. Gatewood shared explains the drop. I think the reason why we're not seeing growth is we just need to do a better job of preparing the students.
Yes.
We know that the test is harder. We just have to do a better job
Yes.
of preparing our students in 4th grade when they come in for that change in test. So yeah, it might be lower, but we still want to see some gains year after year.
Well, what I'm looking for is the proficiency story.
Mhm.
Because, you know, when you look at our individual schools,
Yeah.
the scale is all over the place.
Oh, absolutely.
Percentage-wise, you know, and so I just don't get that story,
Yeah.
the fluctuation
Yeah.
from that.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm trying to figure out, how do I connect
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. And I think Dr. Gatewood did a great job articulating it, that the test is different, it's more challenging, but as superintendent, I get why the scores are lower, but what I still want to see is gains year after year. Because we know why it's harder. Earlier, we need to do a better job of making sure our kids understand the differences in the test.
Dr. Gatewood, many years ago, they used to call 4th grade the grade of comprehension. Does that still ring? So what are you doing to improve staff members to do what you're saying is not happening? To increase the opportunity of getting children to tap into that
Yeah.
piece?
I'm not going to say it's not happening. I just want to say that we just want to do a better job of it. Just want to do a better job. I'm sorry.
I would tell you that our instructional coaches, so across Pike Township, every elementary school has an instructional coach. If that school performed below 70% on IRE, they also have a literacy cadre coach. Okay, so those schools that have 2 coaches have a coach that focuses solely on kindergarten through 3rd grade through the literacy cadre, and they receive some additional professional development. All of the coaches come to this building once a month for training and professional development. In the buildings where they have 2 coaches, we're able to focus our instructional coach training on 4th and 5th grade. How can we better support those teachers? In our buildings where we don't, we are still focusing on all the grade levels, but here's how we need to make sure that we're addressing 4th and 5th grade. Additionally, again, I know I keep saying the same things, but these are mini systems that weren't quite as aligned and as tight as they are becoming in the past year or so. I can speak to that much. Related to the framework. Now we have a framework in ELA and in math that says, here is your 90-minute reading block. Here's how that time should be spent. Here are some samples of strategies that should be used, and they're linked, and there's videos. Our curriculum maps are now spelled out down to the vocabulary words, linked resources. They're written by our teachers who are living and breathing the textbook, the new textbook adoption, the state results, the other assessment results, and so we're bringing all of those people back. And then I go back to that feedback piece to say, what's happening in the classroom in real time? I don't want you to think about what happened in Unit 3 that happened in October in June and tell me what was wrong. I want you to tell me in October exactly what was wrong so we can make sure that we address that and make sure that our instruction is as tight as it can possibly be. And then I would go back to what gets measured gets done. So walking those buildings and finding out what support teachers need, making sure that we are hitting that in professional development and resources every single opportunity that we have.
Are there, so, you know, these numbers are what they are as the new school year starts. Are there checkpoints that are done along the way for iLearn? Like, do we do practice exams?
This year is the first year for grades 3 to 8 in this district. Anyone could pilot last year.
Okay.
Anyone could pilot the test last year. We pilot 6th through 8th grade last year. This year, everybody in the entire state of Indiana has to. There's no option. You have to use the checkpoints,
Okay.
3 to 8.
I'm just one person, so I don't know if everybody agrees. I would personally, as you guys get those, would love to see them as we're going, because, you know, I'm trying not to call individual schools out. We've got one that is more than doubling, and when we look at 4th grade, the percentage. And then we got 2 that are less than half. You know, I want to see that those schools are coming up.
Absolutely.
You know, and it's, I don't want to bash on the schools. I just want to see that we're doing better for our kids.
Absolutely.
And on that note, since we have 4 minutes, I'm going to recommend that we're going to have to come back to another work session because this is very important. To Steve's point, you know, when you see one school is 55% percentage points lower than another school, another elementary school, and so that's the story that we want to be told. That I don't quite get. I for one, everybody else may get it, but I for one, I don't get from this here. Good stuff, good information up so far. So with that being said, and we'll circle back around so that way we can have another work session on this, so we can get all the way through this because it's very important.
So this is after slide 14.
So with that being said, we're going to end today's work session, and we will get ready to start our regular board meeting here in about 5 minutes or so. Thanks everyone.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
Yes.